This is not a message of comfort. It is a warning, perhaps Jung's most urgent message for those who feel too deeply. Empaths live with a secret burden. They heal the wounds of others, but their own wounds remain unseen. Behind their gentle words lies exhaustion. Behind their giving hands lies a child who was never allowed to take. Carl Jung understood that when empathy is twisted by childhood pain, it becomes a prison, a silent cry for love disguised as selflessness. And unless this truth is faced, the empath's gift becomes their curse. This is the final warning to empaths, what Jung wanted you to know before it is too late. Empathy is often praised as the highest form of love. But Jung warned us, love without boundaries is not love, it is surrender. The empath absorbs every emotion, every unspoken pain, until their own identity begins to dissolve. They smile when they are empty. They give when they are bleeding. They carry burdens that were never theirs to hold. The world applauds their kindness, but behind closed doors, the empath collapses in silence. And this silence is deadly, because the world does not save the empath, it drains them. Jung believed this cycle continues because the unconscious convinces the empath that suffering is proof of love. But this is not love. This is self-erasure disguised as compassion. Jung taught that what we do not face in ourselves, we will meet again in the world. For the empath, this means being drawn to those who wound them, over and over again. They attract the critic who echoes their childhood shame, the distant partner who repeats their abandonment, the narcissist who feeds on their giving. And every time, the empath asks, "Why me? Why does this keep happening?" The answer is in the shadow, the hidden belief that love must hurt to be real. The unconscious repeats the pattern, not to punish the empath, but to reveal the wound. Until the wound is faced, the cycle will not end. The empath will keep calling it fate, when in truth, it is the shadow asking to be healed. Every strength casts a shadow, and empathy is no exception. When the empath gives without limit, their compassion mutates into self-destruction. They mistake exhaustion for devotion, silence for patience, and pain for proof of love. The shadow whispers, "If I keep giving, they will stay. If I keep sacrificing, I will finally be enough." But Jung warned that the unconscious shadow does not disappear by ignoring it, it grows stronger. The more the empath hides their own needs, the more invisible they become, until their very soul begins to vanish. This is not empathy anymore. This is self-betrayal dressed as kindness. It is no accident that empaths often find themselves entangled with narcissists. Jung believed opposites are magnetized to one another, not because they are compatible, but because they reveal what is hidden. The empath gives endlessly, while the narcissist takes without limit. Together, they lock into a cycle of need and depletion. The empath sees the broken child inside the narcissist and believes love can heal them. The narcissist sees the open wound in the empath and feeds on it like a mirror turned inside out. This is not love. This is shadow calling shadow. Jung warned that until the empath recognizes this dynamic, they will confuse sacrifice with intimacy and hunger with love. The attraction is not a mistake. It is the unconscious repeating itself, demanding that the empath finally awaken. Empathy, at its purest, is a bridge, a way to feel what another feels. But Jung warned that even bridges can be misused. When an empath gives without boundaries, others quickly learn how to exploit that gift. A sigh, a frown, a silent withdrawal. Suddenly, the empath feels responsible for fixing what was never theirs to mend. In these moments, empathy is no longer a gift. It is a chain manipulated by guilt and fear. And sometimes, even the empath unconsciously uses their pain to control, believing that if they hurt enough, someone will finally see them, finally stay. Jung would say, this is the shadow at work, empathy twisted into a tool of survival. And unless it is made conscious, the empath will confuse control with connection and pity with love. Jung taught that wholeness requires balance, and for the empath, that balance begins with boundaries. Boundaries are not walls, they are sacred thresholds, the lines that protect love from becoming sacrifice. When the empath finally learns to say no, they are not withholding kindness, they are honoring truth. A boundary is not rejection, it is self-respect. It is the declaration, my life force is mine to give, not yours to take. And paradoxically, the moment the empath claims this truth, their empathy becomes more powerful because it is no longer chained to guilt. Jung would say this is the first step of individuation, reclaiming the right to exist as yourself, even in the presence of another's pain. For the empath, boundaries are not cruelty. They are survival, they are freedom, they are love in its truest form. Behind every empath is a child who once carried too much. A child who learned early that love was conditional, given only when they pleased, performed, or sacrificed. They became the peacemaker in the storm, the listener in the silence, the caretaker of wounds that were never theirs. And though the years passed, that child never left. They still live inside, quietly begging, will someone finally see me? Jung believed that true healing begins not with the outer world, but by turning inward to meet this child face to face. To kneel beside them in memory, to hold their trembling hands, to whisper, you don't have to earn love anymore, you are enough. When the empath reclaims this child, the cycle breaks. Empathy is no longer a cry for survival. It becomes a choice, a gift freely given, without fear of abandonment. This is the moment empathy transforms from shadow to light. Jung warned that what we do not make conscious will rule our lives as fate. For the empath, this means the unacknowledged shadow, the anger, the resentment, the fear of being abandoned, keeps repeating itself in every relationship. But the shadow is not an enemy, it is a teacher. It carries the parts of us we rejected to survive. To integrate the shadow is to turn toward the feelings we once buried, the rage we feared, the grief we silenced, the no we never spoke. When the empath dares to bring this shadow into light, something extraordinary happens. The cycles stop. They no longer attract those who drain them, because they no longer believe love must equal suffering. They see clearly, and for the first time, they choose freely. This is individuation, the wholeness Jung spoke of, not perfection, but a self that embraces both light and shadow, and stands unbroken between them. Jung cautioned that the unconscious does not disappear when ignored, it grows louder. For the empath, refusing to face the shadow means repeating the same story again and again. The faces may change, the settings may change, but the wound remains the same. The critic returns in a new disguise. The narcissist arrives with a different smile. The abandonment plays out with a different name. And each time, the empath believes, this time will be different. But until the shadow is faced, nothing changes. The empath gives, they are drained, and they are left wondering why love always slips away. Jung's warning is clear. Without consciousness, empathy becomes a curse. It destroys the very soul it was meant to heal. The gift of feeling deeply can become the weight that buries you alive. Empaths believe they are saving others, but Jung warned, if you lose yourself in the process, no one is saved. The danger is not just exhaustion, it is identity collapse. When the empath dissolves into everyone else's needs, they forget who they are. Their voice goes silent, their desires vanish, their soul drifts into shadow. And what is left? A hollow shell, a being who feels everything, yet belongs nowhere. Jung's words echo like prophecy. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. The empath's tragedy is this: they see every soul but their own. And if this continues, empathy becomes not light, but darkness, not connection, but disappearance. This is the final warning. If the empath refuses to turn inward, their gift will consume them, and the world will never see who they truly were. Jung warned that the unconscious, when ignored, does not remain silent. It rises up and consumes us. For the empath, this collapse comes quietly, not in flames, but in slow erosion. First, their laughter fades, then, their dreams grow dim. Eventually, they can no longer tell where they end and others begin. This is the tragedy of the unawakened empath. They dissolve into the lives around them, while their own life withers in the shadows. And here lies Jung's prophecy. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. If the empath refuses the inner work, they will keep mistaking suffering for destiny and sacrifice for love. This is the breaking point, the moment where empathy becomes annihilation, where the gift turns fatal. It is here, Jung said, that the soul demands awakening, because if not now, then never. And yet, collapse is not the end, it is the threshold. Jung believed that the very moment of breaking can become the moment of awakening, if the empath dares to turn inward. To face the shadow is terrifying. It means sitting with the loneliness, the anger, the grief we once denied. But in that confrontation lies liberation. The critic loses its voice, the narcissist loses its grip, the cycle loses its power. The empath begins to see that their worth was never in sacrifice, it was in their being. This is the rebirth of empathy, no longer survival, but strength, no longer self-betrayal, but self-respect. The gift remains, but now it flows from fullness, not emptiness. And as Jung taught, when the unconscious becomes conscious, fate dissolves and freedom begins. When the empath awakens, empathy is no longer a wound, it is a strength. They no longer dissolve into the emotions of others, but stand rooted in their own truth. Their compassion flows freely, but it is not stolen. It is offered, and only when they choose. This new empathy heals without destroying, gives without emptying, loves without losing itself. The empowered empath becomes a mirror of possibility, showing others that love can exist without chains, and connection can thrive without sacrifice. Jung called this individuation, the birth of the whole self. Not perfect, not without struggle, but free. This is the destiny of the empath who dares to awaken, not to disappear into others, but to shine so brightly that others remember their own light. This is Jung's final message to the empath. If you refuse the shadow, it will consume you, but if you face it, it will free you. Your empathy is not meant to bury you, it is meant to awaken you. The world does not need your sacrifice, it needs your wholeness. Do not mistake silence for peace, or suffering for love. These are the lies of the shadow. Instead, choose to return again and again to yourself, to your voice, to your truth. For when the empath awakens, their gift becomes light. A light that heals without breaking, loves without losing, and shines without fear. And maybe, just maybe, that is how the world will finally change, not by the empath disappearing, but by finally being seen.